Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. So this week we're really excited because we get to look ahead to the ITF European Championships, which is coming up very, very soon. Stay with us. We're going to have a look through all of the divisions, as some of the obvious missing people and missing teams, some of the big divisions in terms of the stacked divisions where there's lots of people we'd expect to do well, and just some thoughts and overviews on the championship as a whole. So, see you soon.
So it's been a long time coming since we had an international championships. So we're nearly there, almost there. What, the 3 weeks left?
Yeah, it's getting pretty close now at this stage, but it's still hanging in the back of my mind, almost like is it Fantasyland, because we've kind of felt a couple of times like we were just about there, and we have Irish Cup in Ireland this weekend as well, and It's still such a chore just to make everything happen and come together. So massively looking forward to Euros and with meeting up with everybody that we haven't seen in so long in person.
Yeah, so it's going to be great to get out there again and test yourselves. And some countries have a little bit of a head start for sure.
Definitely.
Some countries playing a little bit of catch up. So maybe we'll chat through that as well and shoot the breeze and hopefully have a bit of a preview of what to expect, who's there, who's not there, some juicy divisions, some potential juicy matchups, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So one of the things that jumps to mind straight away when we started to bring it up, just looking here at the senior female first degree, and maybe this is something that we could say right now, it's pretty much impossible to look at the junior divisions with any kind of insight, because for the most part those juniors haven't competed in international either before or in the last 2 years, one or the other. So the information that we'd have on any of them is very, very limited. And even when we go to seniors, there's so much movement, so much change in the divisions that you might know some names, you might have some insights as to how people have been performing in local or national tournaments, or in maybe in WACOs for those who were in the WACO Worlds there recently. But the information is so slight for this tournament compared to what we'd be used to. And I just pulled out this senior female first degree, and it's not that I don't know any of the names, but if I do know them, mostly it's people who were first degrees as junior and are still first degrees now. Whereas most people who were first degrees 2 years ago have probably graded.
Yeah, that's possible. And as well, I think you have to take into consideration as well the whole idea of the E-World Championships and things like that, where a little bit of competition, obviously not the same, but some patterns competitors got to do a little bit of competing over the lockdowns and COVID.
Yes.
So obviously that will give those people who have competed a little bit of a head start, because they've been getting coaching and feedback, and that's always going to be a nice head start. But I think, looking at some of these divisions, I think the patterns in particular, you're going to go to the countries with the very strong structure, and the countries that have always been there, the likes of Norway and patterns and other countries like that. I think they will be quite strong as always. And obviously you're going to have a couple of breakthrough people.
And again, you are looking for the countries who did manage to organise select teams and enter those international championships. So in Ireland, we weren't able to meet each other, see each other, or there was very little capacity to select a team. We'd have had to select a team through an online process, and it would have been very, very difficult in the first place to do that. So I think, yes, there will be some maybe slight advantage to having had that experience, but the bigger advantage is, have you been able to train, to engage, to work with coaches, to work in a full-size space, so it also depends, like, did you have a nice summer weather outdoors or something like that where you could train, where unlike most of us in Ireland, until May or June it's pretty much not possible. So we'll have to see how people shape up there. But as we move up and get into the second degrees, suddenly there's a few names that are quite familiar. And as we're looking through the list here, for me, I'm looking at the secondaries, and like Ciara Fitzsimons from Ireland has certainly done very well at the junior level in patterns in particular. But we have Linnea Hole and Selma Lee who jump out at me in terms of the Norwegian contingent, and traditionally do quite well.
Yeah, I think that's the key here, is the people who have a little bit of experience might help them get through this, especially people who may be coming in as new people into the senior division as well, can be a big step up. So I think, yeah, those people will have a little bit of an advantage for sure.
Third degree division in female patterns looks to be fairly stacked though, because as we're looking through that, Izzy Bryder is in there, and she's been a regular medalist. Bo Rook as well, regular medalist, and Mira Sioval. So you know, these are names that we know again and again, and they've performed in person and online, and you know, they've done very, very, very well. So I would certainly be expecting, obviously depending on how the draw falls, to be seeing those girls arriving to the top end of that division.
Yeah, maybe it would be nice to see a little bit of seeding, but obviously, how's that going to work now based on the last? Is it going to work off 2019's Euros, the first and second place being divided, or is it because there's none in 2020? Have you heard anything about that?
You know what, and it's something that you would think you should look at. As far as I know, everything was based off of 2019, but it does bring up the whole thing of, you've had the ITF online e-tournament, but of course that didn't include sparring, breaking, special techniques, so on. So I would imagine that the last one that you could go for true rankings would be 2019, and the change up is so significant. I don't think it's going to have a major bearing on this event. The jump out name there, I suppose, in the 4th to 6th degree is Sylvia Frigo, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So certainly plenty of names that we know, and many strong competitors, but when you're looking at someone who's been a repeat champion and is still in there and performing, and has performed in the e-tournament online as well, I suppose Sylvia is a very, very good bet as we go through it. So we're moving into sparring. And with the female minus 50s, 13 people, maybe a little bit lighter. So overall, the number of competitors across the divisions is a little bit down. It honestly, I thought when we heard that Russia wouldn't be there in full, we know Scotland aren't there at all. We know there's a few countries that have supported with reduced size teams. I really thought I'd see much smaller divisions across the board.
Yeah, I think so. But you can see that, like, some of the divisions, they don't have as many people. As some divisions are actually quite light, but some divisions then are still stacked. So it is kind of an interesting one, and it'll be good to see. We've some medalists in here. Katie Laffin, who's been to the final of this division, both
Euros and Worlds, yeah.
And Worlds. Who else that jumps out at you there, Adrian?
So a few in this one. Patricia Piątek has been, in and about the medals for Poland repeatedly, and then Andrea Musca has been pretty close a couple of times. Gaia Flamini from Italy has done quite well as a junior, has a good few kind of semi-final and final appearances as a junior in the lighter weights, but this is obviously quite a big step up. I think Izzy Bryder for me is the one I'd be very curious to see how she does in this, because obviously she was injured going back 2019, 2018. I can't remember exactly what year she had that knee injury. And very impressed with some of her sparring in 2019 in the World Cup in Sydney. So I think there's some really interesting competitors in this one.
Very leggy division, isn't it?
Very leggy, but they're good. They're good movers too, though. Katie moves very well. Same with Patricia Piątek, Izzy Bryder. I think they move very well, but they have that ability to pick up that front leg and go. So yeah, I think the talent in that division is really, really good.
No Sylvia in this division?
No, noticed that, and she's not in the next one up, so I presume she's taking a step back from the sparring and focusing on patterns for this particular one. And I mean, I know Sylvia lives in Sardinia, and maybe the opportunity to come and cross-train with and get regular opponents might have been a bit more limited with the way things were with COVID, so that could play into it. Couldn't say for sure. 56s looking stronger, 17 competitors in that one. And some really, like when you have Ciara Fitzsimons, Sam Del Rock, Selma Lee is in there as well. For me, there's a few good names in that. And, Ciara had been European champion at minus 50 from Bosnia. Sam Del Rock has, she's had huge battles with Jenny Lehan down the years, so we know the qualities there. And Selma Lee, is always competitive, I think. So now the big thing for me is I'm looking forward to being surprised at the competition. There's going to be so many people. We've got some a much broader Ukrainian team than we'd usually see, so there's going to be some top names bigger, there. Big changeovers in the Polish team, so those aren't going to be soft competitors. We just don't necessarily know their names yet. and I'm sure we'll be learning some of the names as it comes time. So I think, like for us, when we look at our team, the names won't be as familiar to coaches in other countries, and it's simply because we've had that changeover. 2 years is a lot of time for people to retire and move out of competition, come up from junior to get a black belt and start competing. So I think we're going to see that as we go through it. The 62s, this one, you were talking about this one before we started.
Yeah, I think there's some good competitors in here. This is one that has some competitors that we've seen before. The likes of Urshka Gazvoda is in there.
Yeah.
Sarah Lehan, who is the champion. We've also Mira, who's done quite well.
And she's up from 56.
Waco, yeah. And we also have Carolina, who has always been in that division and fought really well as well. So this is one of the divisions that still have plenty of names that have been there before. So that will be an interesting one for sure, I think.
Absolutely. And
a couple of
16
new names as well that we don't know. So you can have some surprises there as well. Obviously, very strong division. I think this is probably the most popular female division in terms of like the general where all the kind of the matches kind of fall towards, and then you have people kind of coming towards the 56 and the 68, so they come in and out of that division. But generally, this is kind of like where it's probably the division with the most competitors. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think they have 16 in that. I think that is the most of the female divisions. And again, as we look up to the 68, so all brand new competitors for us in Ireland. So that's different with Alice and Izzy. Then you've got some
Martha coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think Zuzana is in there as well from Poland.
Zuzana, and then Elizaveta Czernkovic from Slovenia. We've seen a little bit of before in this division. I think in this division, but particularly we came across her more so in team sparring. But it'll be very interesting to see how they mature into the division. These younger girls coming up to it, and those people who've moved up division, like Martha Klungerbo. So yeah, certainly quality competitors, but a new division and a new challenge for them.
For sure.
This is the 75s, and I don't know if it's a mistake on the website or if the situation is that there are no plus 75s. But that's unusual. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, and the minus 75, of course, you have Adelina from Romania, who's been there before, and Urshka as well, who's recently coming off a Waco world title. So she is obviously in form at the minute.
I could be wrong here, but I think Kamila Kasperjak has moved up as well. I think she was in lower weight class previously, but I would if you're putting money on this outside of Urshka and Alicia, I think those are the longer odds. I think your shorter odds are on those girls.
They're not our sponsor, by the way, pooltables.ie. So
no, they've got nothing to do with us.
Check it out.
that's the screenshot or the screen grab coming back to us. What is interesting, the numbers in the power test and special technique are still well up there, and I think what we're seeing there is a big list of the usual suspects. So when it comes to individual power tests, you always expect the likes of the Romania, Hungary on the female side of it, and then you'd see the occasional other person in there as well. But generally speaking, those Romania girls are really good.
Yeah, I think they're especially they really impressed me in special technique Romania, because they're not the tallest people in the world.
Very true.
They're well able to hit all those heights. So I think Romania have found a way to really produce people in the power and spec tech categories.
But I do think the senior female special technique one is quite stacked, because you have so many previous medalists. So Katarina Kozlowskova has been European champion, world champion in this event. You have Zuzana Gajawa, who has generally done very well in this as well. And then people who've medalled previously, Lenka Palchikova and the Romanian girls as well, have typically not won it, but have been in the medals as well, and certainly have won it in team. So I think it's going to be quite a stacked division, and I'd expect that one to have 5 or 6 girls go fully clear, and we'll see where it goes from there.
So that leaves us with the females, is it? We
haven't talked teams.
You want to have a look at the team event?
We'll come back to the teams maybe at the end for both, but just as we move into the men's, I think very much the same kind of situation in terms of looking at the first degrees. Like we haven't I know a lot of these people, but I wouldn't necessarily know them as patterns, champions. There's and that's the nature with the first degrees, I suppose, in particular. Maybe Jack Eilerston and the likes of that, but Jacob Kajawa.
A busier division.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually quite a lot more.
Yeah.
It's definitely quiet, and I think that's true across a lot of the pattern ones. It looks like the numbers are down slightly, but in particular in the first degree. And I do wonder, is that a case of some of the first degrees that were there have moved up and there's been a bit of a hold on people moving to first degree? Because we've certainly seen that kind of situation in Ireland.
Yeah, maybe so.
So at second degree, again, a few people that I would say, yeah, I recognise, but again, no one's jumping out at me in this one as the standout. Yes, I know that person. That person is likely to take it the whole way, and wouldn't want to generalise by country because obviously it's individual. Everyone's individual at this stage. So we'll see how it goes. And when I was looking through the men's patterns, it was like I was looking for all the familiar names and all the people that I've been watching and training and over the years to compete with or against. And I think but it was this third degree where I saw, oh, there's Marcin, he's still in there. So like, I don't know what form anyone is in at this stage, but Marcin Vrnovsky is still there, competing at third degree after what seems like 20 years. So if he's still got it, absolutely hats off to the man, fair play. But you've got the likes of Cody coming in there as well, and I'd be very interested to see what the changing of the guard looks like in those divisions. And who the new people stepping forward are.
Lots of countries in this division in particular as well, isn't there? You've got Czech Republic, Croatia, Denmark, a lot of different countries in there, so that's good as well.
There is a wide mix, and Albania stepping in there as well. So this is where the most familiar names are. Whoops, I did a little bit of a monstrous chop there, so I'll fix that. But starting right at the very top there with Timmy Boss, that's a name we're quite familiar with as far as patterns go. So
both the Italian guys actually,
Matteo Coppola,
well. He's been up there in the medals. I think in second degree in particular, he was quite strong. You've got Espen, who's quite solid in patterns as well.
Absolutely.
Lots of guys. This is actually a stacked division.
And Piotr Sajkowski has been finalist before. I'm not sure that he's won Euros, but he's certainly been finalist before. So there are Jonathan Moreno has been like a consistent performer and always thereabouts. I was looking. Gabor Jale has come back, and that is a man who has definitely been competing for 20 years. Because I've competed against him myself in the past, and always in good shape, always like performing well. So fair play to him getting back on the mats and doing it again.
Yeah, Piotr as well, and of course Ruben. Did Ruben win the third degree patterns in 2017 at the Worlds?
Was it Worlds? He certainly won third degree patterns. So I'll take your word for it on that one. I'm not entirely sure.
But yeah, he's up there anyway. That's for sure.
Going into the sparring, definitely a smaller section here for the 57s. And like for me, there's an absolute standout there, obviously, in Vitaly Solovay.
It's nice to see a couple of guys coming up as well. You have Doyle, who used to compete from Argentina. Christian Papa, who's been around the block for a while, and you've got Yazin as well from Spain.
Yazin from Spain, who did very, very well junior. I mean, I think he's definitely one to watch. So we'll have to see how it translates now as he's senior. I think this is his first senior 57 event. So certainly he was junior in, I remember seeing him, I think, first in Slovenia. So that would have been 2018. So I'm not too sure how he got on in 2019, but certainly looked the part in 2018.
Be some be high pace action in this division, that's for sure. So
should be.
See what kind of training these guys have been getting in. Interesting to note as well, Thomas Fogarty and Jamie Williams, both from Ireland, are not in this division this year. So Jamie has moved up.
That's it. Both of them have been consistent medalists, and they're up now to. Jamie's competing here at 63 as we jump up into it, so it'll be his first time at 63, giving that a spin. And it's an interesting division. Like, I'd be looking at the likes of Sven Huys from Slovenia. Jack Eilerston has done very well, and going back to 2019 in the World Cup, had a great run in the World Cup in Australia.
Just as you mentioned Slovenia there, Adrian, I just came to mind Alan is not in at 57 this year either, so
Yeah,
he's one of the main guys that was in that division for a while as well. But yeah, as we have a look at 63s, for me, as I look at this division, a lot of names that maybe you wouldn't be too familiar with. So I think that's going
big
to be
time.
the case. Like 50% of the people, you'd probably recognize them. And then 50% are newcomers. And of course, these guys have to come through at some stage. So why not be this year? So it'll be interesting to see who will the standout newbies be.
And I think where you're going to see some of the names at 60 or from 63 is here at 70.
Okay.
So, as we're looking at it, Timmy Boss is one of the standouts who's been, a perennial finalist in the 63 kilo division, and he's stepped up to 70. So
Marco from Ukraine is in there as well.
Yeah, and we know there's going to be no issue with that weight step. It's not going to cause a problem at all. Ruben Williams is up from 63 to 70 as well. Shane Toot is up from 63 to 70 from Ireland. And there are probably a few more. Luke Moriarty, 70 as a senior. He was obviously 63 as a junior. Dankert Lutz won in Bosnia, won the 63s junior. So
of course you have Theo in there as well, reigning champion.
Theo Lutz, yeah.
2019, of course. But
I don't know why I started with Dankert. I was thinking of his dad. So there you go. But so it'll be very interesting. And a big comment that we haven't mentioned any of the English yet, and there's a reason for that. There's quite a big changeover with the English. So Ruben and Izzy and people like that, we know, we recognise. But there are definitely a lot of newer names that have come through on the English team this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how they perform.
Yeah, we have Michael Jubecki from Poland stepping in there as well this year with that team. So
yeah, and one of his guys there, Szymon Donishevitz, will be in this division. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, that's a nice division. 70 is always a nice one. Of course, you have Miguel Serrano as well, who's been there for a while at 70, competed against Adam Shelley a few times in semi-finals at Euros and things like that. So some good names I think in here in the 70 division. Is definitely one of the juicier ones for me.
So I've jumped up to the 78s here, and I mean the big story is no Colin Adolphs, so nobody needs to worry about those legs this time.
Well, I don't know with that, Adrian. There's some people in there with some
spider legs.
Some spider legs, some G-string legs in there that would be flying around, kicking you in the head. Yeah, there's this is one of those 178, isn't it? So you got really tall people.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually 85 is more stockier, and 78 is people that are generally a little bit taller. But you see Magomed has stepped up, so world champion from 2000 and was that
2019 at 70 kilos.
Long ago now.
Yeah,
and he had some great battles with Ahmed, Alamin's brother as well. So he's in there as well at 78. I think he's pulled up from 70 also. So that'll be an interesting one if they clash again.
Yeah, so obviously Ahmed's in there. We have Ruslan Demichen as well, who's he was very, very good at junior. And like Bartosz Bien from Ireland, again, junior 75 silver medalist at the last World Championships. So, you've got a couple of people like that, and we don't know how they're going to perform in senior, necessarily just yet. So I think those are definitely going to be interesting to look at and see how they go. And then, the likes of the journeyman John Moffat's in there, and again, he's definitely 20 campaigns in at this stage.
Took a silver medal in my first Euros 2007, so he took a silver medal at that one. So he's around a long time. Yeah, and he always pulls out the stops when he gets going. So I think he's a couple of bronze medals in a few Euros gone by. So yeah, definitely not one to be counting out.
Yeah, and then a couple of the Finns, so Duca and so on, looking pretty good in training as well. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this shapes up. But I would think when people are looking at it, it looks like the gates have been thrown wide open in terms of people like Colin and Antti, not being in the mix this time. And it does look like a very different division.
Now, haven't they?
That's guys. It. Yeah, going back to 2017 even, you're still looking at some of those guys. So I think it does open things up for quite a change. Mm-hmm. So jumping up to 85s.
Yeah, so that moves us to 85. Some good names in there again that we're familiar with.
So I want to call out Zazalak, who's been there forever and a day, and always on the team, always reliable anchor on the team as well. And he's in there, so fair play to him. Let's see how he gets on.
Yeah, no Danilo from Ukraine, which is an interesting one. So you've got Alamine, who's been in there. It'll be interesting to see how he's shaping up. I think he had an injury that held him out of the Wackos recently, so be nice to see him get back in action. You've got some
Absolutely.
young guys coming through as well. We have Camille here from Ireland who has come through. Did he win Worlds as junior? Yeah.
Yeah, he won -75 at junior, and he's gone straight to +85 as senior. He grew, which is
Okay.
if you know him and the idea of him growing, it's a bit disturbing. But yeah, he did. He grew.
Yeah, but I think this is another one where we have a couple of people coming through. I see Jack Parker there from England. There was a Jack Parker competed with us as a junior. I don't know if that's Jack. He's back in again, but
Fair play to him
or
if
might
he
be
is.
somebody else. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see some old faces and some new faces this Euros.
Definitely. And so we move on to the bigger boys, and these are the more familiar names as well. So
Yeah,
this
Bartos was in at -57 for a while. I think
was
that
there a little mistake there.
So, scary to think of him at 57. So you have Artem Belov, who's been around forever.
Yes.
You have Jakob in there as well, and
Yeah.
of course you have Bartos. So some solid guys. Peter Zarko is up as well. He was usually 78 guy, so
Okay.
crazy to see him in a plus. And he's somebody who's well able to throw hands. He's competing in Wacko and things like that. So interesting to see what he can do in that +85 division.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's a smaller division, but if you're going to sit down for an afternoon and watch a bit of sparring, this would be a nice division to sit yourself next to and have a good look at, I think.
Yeah, definitely a juicy one.
So again, looking at the power test and the special technique on the male side, again, like I would say it's very, very hard to know where this stands. But you've got I think a really good representation across a number of countries for a start. Obviously, Bartosz is in there from Poland, again, and he's gone pretty well. Big one that's missing, your friend from Finland.
Yeah, the big guy. He's a solid man on the power.
Yeah, so he's not there.
He's not
so,
in there this year.
So that that's another interesting one. And I think the Romanians have made a little bit of a change up as well. So I think they've had a little bit of a changeover in terms of their lineup there in the last couple of years. So maybe a retirement or two, finally changing things up on that front as well. But as we get into the jumpers, I think
Alan Adolf is in as the jumper, so he's in for special technique, but not for sparring.
Interesting. Must have a look and see if they've lined him up with team, because I didn't actually take a look at that. So see how that goes. But Andrew from Romania is in there, so that's expected. And have we got Gajawa from Mati Mroz, who again isn't sparring, but he is in for team sparring for Poland, which is interesting. And he's in for special technique, and he has certainly done well on that before. I was just looking to see if Poland got a second entry. They do, but it's not Jacob Gajawa, so that's interesting as well. So their lineup has changed a little bit there, maybe.
We also see Vitaly's in there, who's not the tallest guy, but well able to jump. And Ruben, another guy, not the tallest guy in the world, but well able to jump as well. So a few interesting...
Maybe they have a few surprises in store for us in this division.
Yeah.
It will be quite interesting. So moving into the teams, and here we see the big hit. I think this is where the COVID side of things has hit hardest, where people or countries that would typically be able to field teams are being hit. And we're seeing 6 teams there for a female senior team pattern. So it's not that you'd have had an awful lot, but 9-10 teams would have been fairly common, I think, for most years. And normally Norway are fairly well up there, but this is going to be tight, because Germany are often, quite strong there. Poland generally very, very solid. And Spain as host nations, you'd expect, will have plenty of preparation done. So who knows?
I think this really will come down to the team that had the most time together, and that will be a factor of that will be COVID and lockdowns in any particular country.
Yeah.
Plus the fact as well of how many new people are being brought into a team. So if you have a lot of people who have been together before, understand each other's rhythm and things like that, I think that will be a big benefit. So I think that might be one of the factors.
So you're saying we should be backing Romania here, is what you're saying? Because I'm looking at those names. All those names for Romania are, these are people who've been in the team a little while. And from junior, they've come together. They've done team pattern together from junior all the way through here, and they were one of the first teams back training. Like, they had a huge training camp early this year. I think it was in Transylvania of all things. But I remember they had their photo shoot done, and I remember there was a lot of publicity around it. So maybe this is their year.
Watch out. Yeah.
Okay, so moving into the power test. So let me just make sure that I didn't skip the so we have the pattern. I didn't skip the sparring one because I thought they were in a row. Never mind. Okay, so we're our pattern, our power test, which is one where you do tend to look at Romania in particular for this, and you know, Hungary were very often strong here as well. England will be an interesting one as well, because England have, I think, taken an approach of putting all of their teams into everything. So it's like a throwback to the old 6-person team. So they've got, for male and female, it looks like they've got sparring, pattern, special and power. And it's rare that you can do all of them well. But
that's true. That'll be interesting to see. I think team power is one of those ones where it's hard to predict. And usually if you have a big, solid, strong team, you'll probably do well.
That's it. So a little bit bigger, 9 teams here for sparring, and I think this gets a little bit more open, gets a little bit more interesting, and not knowing what kind of form or what way people are, I wouldn't want to place a bet on this one.
But you've got some solid countries with, like, you're thinking here of the people who are still around that we know of. We're not sure of the people who are slotted into positions, obviously, but then you're kind of looking at countries who have been strong over the years in sparring. The likes of the Irish senior female team are always going to be thereabouts. You have Poland, who are always thereabouts, and it's
Norway.
hard to write off the likes of Norway and Slovenia as well. So, and now there's a couple of girls we mentioned in the English team there as we were going through the individual events. So there's definitely some teams there to be aware of.
I think it'll be super interesting, and I think this is almost like a big reset button, and then our knowledge of ITF international competition and the meta breaks, and how it breaks down, kind of resets from this point and we go forward. I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. Likewise, in relation to special technique, we, with the girls, it's even more interesting because you have just the 3 techniques, and in some countries, they're capable of, feeding 2 or 3 competitors for each technique. And, this, I think, is one where it's generally a case of, have you got that specialist who can take, once your team has gone clear on all 3, who can carry it forward? And I think it's going to come down to who the specialists are in terms of the these teams. And like, that's where I always look at the likes of Russia, and the team doesn't necessarily look the strongest, but if they can get those first 3 done, you're back to Katarina again, and she takes it from there, and anything could happen, So moving into the male side of it, looking at the senior team pattern, again, very low number of entries into this, just 6 teams in total. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, in Ireland, we didn't even attempt to prepare a team. We wouldn't have had one. But for the countries that have managed to get their teams together, I think, like you were saying earlier, it'll come down to how much time do they actually get together.
I think, do you know what? Usually, the teams who have some camps before they go to the Euros, the likes of Poland, the likes of Romania, I think they might have a big advantage here at this particular campaign for the likes of Team Pattern. Because it will just give people that extra time to be together, because I feel that that's going to be the big factor in the team events that rely on actual, basically, team pattern essentially, and your pre-arranged maybe. So they're going to be the events where the amount of time you spent with your team is going to have a big impact on the result.
For sure. And maybe just looking at this one as the last one for today, as we're digging into it, it's the male in our team sparring. And finally, a more normal number of teams, so like 12 teams have been entered into this, and that's great. That's going to be a competitive, what we're used to kind of a division. And you've got to say, Ukraine are not always able to put the team in. Now, but there's a team there, and there's definitely some strong names in that team.
Yeah.
Who else
are we looking at? We're looking at Poland.
Poland, my God, yeah. In some ways, you look at that and it's like nothing has changed for I don't know how long. When you finish the lineup with Vernovsky, Zazalak, and Zuk, and Mraz is in there, Bartek's in there, so it's like, okay, right, that's a strong team.
Very strong team, yeah.
And then look at Germany. So, you know, you've got the Ramadan brothers, you know, in there as well. But then the rest of the team is almost new. Well, Colin Adolph's in there too. So, I mean, if you can start with those boys, you have a fairly good start, haven't you?
Definitely not a bad treat to be starting off with. No, I'm just trying to find the website myself, so sorry, bear with me. Yeah,
No
so
worries.
Colin Adolph's in there. Yeah, we have the two Ramadan brothers, Tobias Lenz, yeah, and then a couple of new guys as well who I'm not too familiar with, but
Sure.
I'm sure they're going to be solid coming from training camps with the rest of the guys. So yeah, looking through it again, like Ireland, very, very young team, very inexperienced team in terms of senior, but some good guys in there as well.
There is.
So a draw has a lot. The draw that you get has a lot to do with it, I think. Norway, another team that have some standout names that we're used to, but I'm not too sure. Maybe they're not the biggest team like they've been previously. So maybe their strategy will be a little bit different this time.
And that can be a big challenge when you line out against the likes of Poland, who can put everybody out over 6'1", 6'2", and you know they can. It doesn't mean they will, but you know the height and the depth in the team is there to do it.
Yeah. So that will be an interesting one, I think. Looking at that again, it's going to be. I think the team events, I think it's fair to say that it's going to be close enough to where it always has been. I think where we might get a few surprises in the individual events, maybe.
For sure. So, you know, it's so different. Like we were bringing that up and we were looking through it, and when you kind of compare it back to just a couple of short years ago, and this is just from 2018, so just stepping back those 3 years, and you know, if we're looking at some of the names that are there, so many of them aren't in there this time, you know, and you know, and it is purely because of this whole COVID environment that we've come through. The natural order of things are changed, but you'd usually see it in a much more incremental kind of way, and we're seeing some pretty big jumps this time that, you know, it really is quite incredible. But like you know, looking at the 68s here, you know, the 1 and 2 from 2018 are in the division, but I think they're at 75 now. Maybe Tsernkovic is at 68, I'm not sure, but Adelina's at 75, I think, in this one. You know, it will be quite interesting to see, how has it progressed, what's changed, who's missing. Looking at the 85 males there, and you know, Gapanenko and Demichen are both missing from Russia. Gilles is missing from Scotland.
Yeah.
You know, and these are people that, as far as we know, are still training and still competing, but they're not available for this particular championship due to, you know, COVID-related decisions or vaccine, passport, and travel issues, and you know, it's quite different.
I think the plus 85 is the podium, which has the most people representing this year. Again, I think all the other ones you might have 1 or 2 max, and then there's that's good. That means there's going to be a shake-up. It means there's going to be opportunities for more people to come through, make a name for themselves, and to take on, get potentially a European title under their belt. So what better time to do it?
Well, but this is the thing. Finally, we have that excitement of looking forward at divisions and going, oh, I wonder what will happen there, who'll come out on top. And then you have the next little step when the draws are done, and you kind of see who's going to meet early, who's going to meet later, and you're kind of just you're falling into your own nature and making your predictions. Are you going to be right or wrong? But it's great to have this excitement again, and we've been missing that for so long now that it's great to look forward and say, oh, okay, we can actually see where everyone's at, see what this style is. I mean, we might come back and everything we've been preparing for could be changed, you know.
Yeah. And I think as well, we were kind of chatting before this that I think that some countries who have been training for a long time, they might have a bit of an advantage, who are being able to compete, go around Europe and travel there. There's going to be an advantage there for sure. So it'll be interesting to see when we get on the mats. Maybe it'll all equal out and it'll be status quo and just like it was, or potentially maybe it'll be all flipped on its head.
You know what? I think it'd be strange if we were wrong, but I think having mat time and mat time in competition is going to matter, and I think it's going to show. I think it's going to show. And I mean, that is one of our biggest worries, we'll say, from our point of view, of like, there's just the low number of competitions that so many competitors have had behind them versus some of the countries who've been competing for months now. And I think that's going to be very, very illustrative.
Yeah, like it's going to be interesting because I know that, like we alluded to earlier, some of the camps that have been done previous years in the week before, the likes of Poland, Romania and other countries, they might be a bit more beneficial this time. And then looking at ourselves with the nationals on this weekend, with 3 weeks to go, you know, it just gives people that a little bit of time to make slight adjustments and to ramp up their training towards the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see the preparation and how that's going to unfold.
That's it. So folks, let's see how it goes over these next 3 weeks. Hopefully you're looking forward to seeing the European Championships. It's all going to be on live stream as far as we know. So if you can't be there, hopefully you can join in and see from the sidelines, and hopefully it'll give us an awful lot more content to dig into and analyse over the next number of months. So hopefully you've enjoyed this chat with us here today, and for next Friday, I think we're open to. We have one topic at the moment that we're digging through. We have a few suggestions. Yeah, exactly that. So if you have some suggestions for things you'd like us to look into, and in particular ahead of this next Euros, give us a shout over the week to come.
Fantastic. Catch you in the next one, everybody. Thanks for joining.